Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Dog Walk, the almost daily, uncut, unedited, one-take show where I take my dogs out for their nightly walk and discuss whatever's been on my mind for that day. I like to record one take and not to edit because I think that's way more authentic. There's way too much editing, scripting, self-centering going on YouTube, and I just want to be my true self when I speak, flaws, warts and all, so that my son eventually, if he watches these videos when he grows up, understands the true me and not just the polished, sanitized version of me. So today, before I get into the topic, I'll just say it's minus 13, which is about the same temperature as yesterday. Yesterday I was saying the temperature dropped by 80 degrees Fahrenheit in 12 hours, which actually was true, but only if you factor in the wind chill. If you factor in the wind chill, it was minus 23 Celsius, but without it, the actual thermometer was minus 12. So when you do the math considering just that, it's actually a difference of 11 degrees, right? Minus 12 to minus 23. So since the conversion is 1.8, the easiest way that I would calculate that mentally would say, okay, 1.8, well, for 10 degrees, that's 18 degrees, and then 1 extra degree is 10% of that. So 18 plus 1.8 is 19.8. So that's 20 degrees of difference from what I said yesterday. And since yesterday I had calculated 80 degree Fahrenheit drop, that means that it was actually, or was it 80? No, sorry, 72 degree yesterday. 72 degree Fahrenheit drop. So that means that actually the temperature just by the thermometer dropped down by around 52 degrees Fahrenheit. And who says mental math is not useful? Asmongold does, but anyway. So I realized after I got back home yesterday that turns out that I actually have a lot more to say about education than I first thought I did, and it's not just because the video was a bit shorter yesterday. There's a lot of different things that I want to think about or mention or work through with you before I get to my ultimate goal, which links to the previous series of videos that I did about future systems and my ideals. So before I get to that, I think that I might actually turn this into sort of a second mini series of multiple episodes on the topic specifically of education. So let's see how that goes. Today, there's two main things that I want to try to get across. And if there's time, hopefully I get to both of them. But if there's time, there's a lot more coming down the list. The first thing that I want to talk about is the second thing I will talk about is the adult education model that I mentioned yesterday that I put into effect, or that we were applying, I should say rather, while I was at the aerospace engineer trade school. And the first thing that I want to talk about is what I sort of just introduced there, math. So many people, it's sort of the main gripe that I constantly hear from everyone, har, no one will ever need to know how to do mental math because you've got a calculator with you, or whoever will ever use cosines or sines or trig or differential, well, maybe not differential equations, but just multivariable equations. I don't know what those are called in English. All that type of stuff, right? Everyone's always saying that math is useless. And I would argue that not just because I'm an engineer, I think you're completely wrong with that. But you have to look below the surface level to realize the value that math brings to you. So the first thing is, you just saw today and yesterday I use very similar but somewhat different methods to quickly calculate the difference, or the number of degrees, the temperature drop. So that's the first value that I can find in math, is that once you understand it, it brings some mental flexibility to you to find shortcuts, find efficiencies, right? Just like at this time I went, well, okay, 11 is close to 10, so the 1.8, instead of doing like last time and multiplying by 2 and then removing 10% of that, now what I did is the opposite. I said, 11 is close to 10, so I'm going to calculate for 10, and then I'm going to add 1/10 of that, right? Because 11, 1 is a tenth of 10. So just those little shortcuts make it actually super easy to calculate or to convert Celsius into Fahrenheit and vice versa. If I had tried to actually do 11 times 1.8 mentally, or whatever it was yesterday, I forget the numbers, right? It was 40 degrees times 1.8. That's not as easy, right? Whereas when you start to do it long enough, you realize those shortcuts, and you suddenly can find easier paths to reach the same goal. And I think that gives you a sort of logical flexibility that you can apply in other topics, whether it's, or in other domains, I should say, whether it is through your artistic endeavors, the way you craft your words, figuring out different ways to build a shed, or different ways to reuse materials, or be more efficient with what you bought, save money, etc. Find ways to I can't explain. I have a great example of how I managed to repurpose a completely useless part of my yard, landscaping, that was done by the previous owners, into something that actually looks quite nice in the front. But I don't have time to go down that path. Anyway, I hope you get an inkling of what I am trying to illustrate. Is, first of all, math gives you a sort of mental flexibility that you can apply in other domains. It's true, you may not necessarily need to actually use the math formula in your day-to-day life, but that's not what matters. And that brings me to the second advantage, or second reason why I think math is important, is the logic, right? Mistra keeps, there's definitely something there. She keeps pulling that way, but anyway, there's math is a domain that does not care how you feel. It is a domain that okay. It doesn't matter how emotional you get. Getting angry at the problem. Daisy, what's up? Are smelling something there? Getting angry at a problem, or loving math, or hating math, or feeling sad or depressed, none of that actually changes or makes you better at solving a math problem. Math forces you to take a step back and to use logic, to step away from your lizard or ape brain, or whatever you want to call it. Step away from your emotions and activate your higher brain functions. And I think that, again, even though you might not need to use trigonometry or multi-factor equations in your day-to-day life, being able to think logically about something, whatever it is a skill that is so important in life, and I think that not enough people apply. I mean, just look at any internet comment section. Just look at any protest or counter protest, Black Lives Matters versus Blue Lives Matter, or look at Republicans versus Democrats and the rhetoric, right? People get so easily carried away by their emotions, they lose all common sense, and they get swept up in conspiracy theories or in hatred and bigotry. And that's just something that I think that having a more mathematical, analytical mind can help protect you against. So I truly believe that learning math can help you become a better human, can help you keep more self-control, not get carried away, and that can benefit your life in so many different ways. Also, it can be useful just in the practicals at the very basic level. It's also useful just in your day-to-day life, right? So many times I've caught an error on a bill at the grocery store or this or that just because I was like, in my mind it should have cost about this much, but it's costing that much. Something's off. Let me check. And sure enough, I checked the bill and I realized, the cashier double charged something, or an item was, sometimes they label it as a certain price in the store, but the system hasn't updated, and it's not charged. You don't get charged a sale price, you get charged a full price, right? Or things like that. So math is also actually useful in your day-to-day life, or even just something as silly as when I was trying to calculate the temperature yesterday. If I had to take my gloves off and try to finger it into my calculator, my hand would have frozen and fallen off. Right? So yeah, math, beyond all these high lofty things that I just mentioned, math is also useful just at the very basic level in your day-to-day life. Now, if you don't care that the grocery store overcharges you or whatever because you're Asmon Gold and you make $1 million per day on your 7 videos that you publish, well then that's fine, right? But in today's economy, with people being so emotional and being unable to control themselves in what they buy and what they spend their money on, math can help, again, shield you a little bit from that. It will never overpower your basic tendencies if you're that type of person, but still it can help you. It's another tool to have in your belt that can help prevent that, or at least mitigate it a little bit. So yeah, the logic, all of that stuff, I think is why it's important to continue to teach math. Now, I'm not saying that every Bubba J needs to know how to do calculus, right? Or solve differential. Well, that's the same thing, solving differential equations and doing calculus. But having a basic understanding of math, having math continue to be a mandatory subject, I think has some fringe or related benefits that can't be ignored. And that's why I think it's very important to continue to do that, even if you are, someone who only wants to write screenplays for your entire life, or you want to be a pro Fortnite player, or I'm sure Fortnite isn't really a thing anymore. Neither is Overwatch, so I don't know what's popular. I mean, League of Legends or Dota is probably still. Anyway, since the fall of Overwatch 2 esports, I kind of haven't watched a lot of esports because My first love was watching Starcraft, Starcraft 2, and then moved on to Overwatch. But since then, I haven't really watched any esports. I haven't had time with the baby in the house. But anyway, that's completely irrelevant to what I was trying to say. The point is that even if you don't plan on using math in your career, it can still be useful in your day-to-day life, not just because you know how to do the equations, but because it develops logical, critical thinking, which is something that is so lacking in today's society, especially in North America. So yeah, that was the first point that I wanted to bring. Now, my God, the girls are really stopping and smelling everything. I don't know what's going on today. Miss Daisy. Okay, the second point, quickly, the adult education model that I mentioned. I think this could be a good alternative to a system like Montessori, which again sounds great on the surface, but I'm still a bit hesitant for the maturity of children to pick all their topics. So again, if you know anything about Montessori, please watch my previous video and let me know where I'm misinterpreting the system, because it seems like there's some flaws in the thinking behind it. But as an alternative, one thing that worked really well, or the theory behind it in my mind makes perfect sense, is the adult education model that I keep mentioning. So instead of just mentioning it, I'll actually describe it. Because my point is that I think that we can take that and we can apply it to all of our education throughout our life, including as children, not just when you're an adult. And that model is the Knowledge-Teach-Coach-Eval model. So what it entails is, first of all, it requires a lot more effort and dedication from the teacher, but also it increases, in my mind, retention so much compared to the traditional lecture model, where anyone who's a student at university knows that what do you do? Daisy, we're going this way. What do you do when it's time for finals, right? Or even during the semester, right? You listen to a 3-hour long lecture. Daisy, stay on this side. You listen to a long lecture. You don't actually listen because you're too busy taking notes to actually pay attention to what the teacher said. And then you have to go through everything again as you cram for it, because you never listened, so you didn't understand in the first place. You were just too busy taking notes. That's one of the reasons why when I was in high school and through most of university, I actually never studied, because I actually listened. So I understood what the teacher was saying in class. I didn't have to go through it afterwards. But anyway, that's a completely other topic, and I don't want to go down that path too far, because I think we need to head home. Daisy seems to want to pull towards the house. I think she's getting cold. So yeah, instead of doing that whole lecture, cram, regurgitate everything while it's still in your short-term memory onto the term exam paper, and then promptly flush it all out of your brain. Like, I'm sure anyone who's gone to university knows what I'm talking about, right? The model kind of fights that, because you're going multiple times through every topic, but each time in different manners. So everything that you want to teach, the way it works is you present it 4 times. Well, actually, you present it 3 times. The first time is the knowledge portion. So you go, and that's what would resemble the most the traditional lecture that you would see in school. You it is exactly what it says, right? You provide the knowledge to the students. Now, I would argue that nowadays, actually, that's probably going to be a topic for another follow-on education video in this series, because I truly think that we can leverage AI and video and in order to do that. But the point is that a good teacher could provide all the notes that includes all the sort of the lecture knowledge and theory to the students in advance, in order to not have to waste time in class presenting that knowledge. But let's assume that kids will be kids and that they won't do all the pre-readings. So, So let's assume that you'll spend some time in class just delivering the knowledge, explaining the theory behind, how do you multiply two numbers together, or add them to, or whatever topic you want to talk about, right? So first you provide the knowledge, but then you don't move on to the next topic. What you do is that the next step, the C, is coach. So you take whatever. I'll use an example from our class not a class that I taught, but from my trade school. Mistra, come on! Sorry, she's like stopping every 2 seconds, and Daisy is freezing. I need to be a bit more insistent with her. So it's a thing called RARM. It's a risk assessment form, basically, for airworthiness. So the first thing that you do is, again, you explain the knowledge of what the RARM is, what it's for, what should be in every box on the form, right? What you put, what's expected. Once you've done that, then you coach. So in order to coach, what that means is you provide guided examples to the students. So you bring them a scenario where there is a specific aircraft incident, and you go ahead and box by box, ideally with the help of the students, but box by box, you fill out the RARM form yourself and you show them how it's done. And ideally you provide more than one example, so they can get an idea of exceptions and things like that. Daisy. But you coach them through the process. You show it to them, you demonstrate it. Then, once you've done that to your satisfaction, the next step is that's teach. Knowledge-Teach-Coach-Eval. Yeah, so that was teaching, right? First, you provide them the knowledge of what is the form, what should be in it, blah, blah. Then you teach them how to actually fill it out using real-life examples. Then the next step is coach. So now you provide them examples, and it's up to them to fill it out. But you don't just give it as homework and walk away and grade the homework. You actually find all the key points, the key break points in the process, and you do it in class, and you let them go up to that break point, and then you regroup everyone, you see what they did, coach them through. Oh, okay, well, you, student A, you got that right. Student B, your answer that you're providing to the group here, it's wrong because of this reason, and that's how you should have done it. So you correct and provide feedback immediately and throughout the process, and then you let them go and do the next step, the next part of the form, and you do that repeatedly for multiple examples throughout the process. So you're always course correcting so they can see their errors or that what they did right, and then they're all reset and at the same starting point for the next phase of whatever thing you're trying to show to them. And then finally, after you've done all of that, then you evaluate. Then you give them the homework to do that completely by themselves that you're going to grade. Or eventually, you do the test. But my fingers are frozen, like literally frozen, because I haven't been able to switch hands because I'm holding 2 dogs today, unlike yesterday. So I don't think I need to explain what the evaluate portion is. Everyone's known sort of test, but that's the point where you grade it. And it's been proven that doing that, as opposed to just a lecture, increases retention by something like 70 to 80%. So yeah, I think we can apply that throughout our education. And on that note, because it's so freezing, let me know, what do you think? Is math useless, and I haven't convinced you of its possible uses? Or what do you think about the adjunct education model, and do you see that working? Because it can apply to many or most different fields, even sports that you want to teach, right? You explain the theory of how to do an axle, then you teach them how to do it, you demonstrate it, you coach them through it, and then you evaluate, right? So anyway, it applies in every field. Let me know what you think. Have a good evening.